Well, in the course of the day, we asked if a Home Office minister was available to come on the programme, but we were told no one was available, and later we were told that no one from the government could speak to us tonight either. But I am joined by the former Mayor of London and future Mayoral candidate Ken Livingstone, youth worker and former Conservative candidate for Hammersmith Sean Bailey, the Deputy Chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation John Tully, and the Reverend Nims Obunga, who's from Tottenham. Why do you think this happened?
I think that there is clearly criminality. There's this real problem now with the social network, allows people to come to these riots much more rapidly than they did in the early 1980s. But I've been in about 18 London boroughs this year, spending a day in each, gone into colleges. Young people there are so uncertain about their future. I've been into college in Tottenham where half the kids thought they might not be able to afford to continue their course because the education maintenance.
But that sounds like an excuse, doesn't it? I mean,
it's not an excuse.
A lot of people who can't continue but don't go and riot.
We can all see it. You can have a whole load of clapped-out politicians come on and denounce criminality. And we can do it again next summer when it happens, or we can find a way to stop it. And I think for the first time, certainly in my lifetime, a generation are growing up completely uncertain about their future. They're not certain they can get a home. They're not certain they can get a job. They see politicians that don't engage with them. You've got to crack down on this, and I got 7,000 extra police in London. If we hadn't got those, this would be out of control tonight.
Sean, a generation, I mean, you work with young people, a generation who feel that many of them have no hope, they can't get on, they can't get a job, they can't perhaps afford to go to university.
There's a lot of things to say about it. Firstly, it's quite horrible to watch people try and make some mileage out of this for their own political thing. It's not about Ken, it's not about 7,000 police as well. These are young people not scared of the police, not concerned about the police. If you see what's happened, these kids have been communicating and picking out the nice places to go and riot. The important thing about that is it's a set of kids doing a particular thing. Most children have nothing to do with this. And to try and link this to the cuts or whatever is just electioneering for whatever election you're trying to fight next. This is a deeper issue about why we don't feel like we can engage our children. Our community should be able to stop this.
So are you saying it's not connected to the cuts at all?
Absolutely
It's got
not.
Nothing to do with it?
Absolutely. These kids will not talk to you about that at all. Absolutely not.
The Metropolitan Police have been warning the government all year there was the potential for this. We saw this the last time we went through a real downturn in the economy in the early 1980s. It's not an excuse, but we'd be stupid not to recognise it's part of the cause.
Ken, it is always the business of whoever's in government, red or blue, to look after the future of children, and they try to do that. But you've got to be careful that you don't excuse the behaviour of these children. You must understand the vast majority of young people have nothing to do with this, and the vast majority of young people who are involved are just criminals. If you notice, on the BB network, some of my young people showed me this morning, they're picking particular shops, the things that they'd like to own.
Sports shops, for example.
Exactly. What that shows you is that it's organised in a particular manner.
Sports shops?
You can't get over the fact that the last time we had rioting consistently like this was in the early 1980s when we're in the depths of a recession. It's come back. And it's not unique here. It happens in America, it happens in Europe. The government's got to have a programme to make certain you catch the criminals. We've got to stop this nonsense. They're going to get rid of 2,000 police in London next year. But we've also got to be in a position, you've got to give a young generation the hope there's something for them.
You're there, you're in that community where it started, but it started with a peaceful protest. I mean, what do you see as the root causes of this?
First, forgive me, both of you are good friends of mine. It's not a political debate, and let's get politics out of the door, okay? I need to be quite clear about this. I was there, I saw the beginnings of it, and this is not a response just to what happened on that day. It is important that, I was with the families of Mark Duggan, and I heard their cry for clarity of what went wrong in relation to the situation.
In the shooting.
And in relation to the shooting. And they wanted answers. They felt that they hadn't been engaged effectively. And unfortunately, this extended itself for so long.
But how did that actually happen? I mean, they want legitimate answers to legitimate questions. Everybody does. Yeah. But how did that suddenly turn into people, you know, looting pairs of trainers from shoe shops?
We've got to be clear about this. It didn't start with looting pairs of trainers. And there are no excuses, but we've got to understand some reasons here. And what we've got to understand, some of these young people feel they've got no stake in society, and they don't feel they're risking anything. But at that time, I'll tell you what happened at that time. 4 or 5 hours waiting outside the police station. That was what happened. Beyond, at the end of which the family said, we're not getting our answers, and so we're going. So some young people had already BB'd, as we heard Sean say, and some had come in.
It looks to a lot of outsiders as if this is almost recreational rioting. They're having fun. That's what they're doing.
But can I say this? Let's get this right. The first thing that was burnt, the first thing that was destroyed were 2 police cars, and I saw that happen. That was destroyed. That was pushed into the center. That got burnt up. The next thing that happened was there was chaos on our streets. Now, it escalated.
But are the police a particular target then? Are you saying that the relations with the police are still bad?
The relations with the police need some fixing, evidently so. I mean, Tottenham and Haringey and with our police and young people, there have been some directions. We've moved forward, but we're not where we need to be.
John, do you accept that relations with the police are still not good for many of these young people, and they feel they have very little stake in society, and burning police cars is one of the first ports of call?
I think most definitely there has been an enormous move forward from the 1980s, the late 1980s, when there was a broken relationship between ourselves as a police service and
local communities. It doesn't look like that, does it? It looks terrible, and it looks as if the police don't have a grip.
I disagree. I think an enormous amount of effort has been put in by the police service to engage with their local communities. Each ward within the boroughs have their own community police teams, and we work really hard to keep those relationships going.
Just up the road to Croydon tonight, something going off in Birmingham as well. I mean, there's pockets of this all over London. They maybe have been engaged for 25 years or more, but it doesn't seem to be working. And people are asking, where are the police?
The police are there. They're doing their utmost to contain it. There are finite resources. Before I was here this evening, I was at the Goals Control Centre in Lambeth. An enormous amount of effort has been put in by senior commanders and the people out on the streets, the people I actually represent, the boys and girls who do the day-to-day job, who've actually got to face what you're seeing on your screens now. Right. And they are really dedicated to that job.
Do you think morale in the police, for example, has taken a big hit? I mean, we've seen the resignation of two very senior officers recently. We know about the News of the World scandal. We know about all these things. And we know about pay. And
we're heading for 3 commissioners in 4 years. That doesn't help. You've got the scandals. You've got the threat. I mean, last year 1,000 jobs were left vacant because of a freeze on recruitment. You've got this proposal to cut 1,900 police. But I have to say I completely agree. It's been a sea change in policing. 30 years ago, it was like an army of occupation. I mean, the black youth talked about rebellion. I mean, the world has dramatically moved on. We had one tragic incident, and I have to say the Trident team have, I think, arrested well over 100 armed criminals without firing a shot.
But then
something went wrong.
Doesn't that undercut your big argument that there are political reasons for this? I mean, it does sound then like simply yobbery, doesn't it?
No, it's not the fault of the police. I'm absolutely clear. I think that policing has had a sea change in this city.
But then why is it the fault of the government?
Well, it's the fault of the government because basically you go all over London. I mean, I was up in Tottenham. Tottenham's had a 9% cut nearly in its government grant. The youth centres are closing. People are seeing all the sort of things that used to rely on going.
Are the lads who are out there rioting tonight, are they the ones who would otherwise be in a youth centre? Because people are going to doubt that.
Well, you see, the reality is this. We've got, obviously, if we talk about youth services, 75% cut in youth services, that's real. If we look, and that's the danger, if the press or the politicians look for one simple answer, we're making a big mistake. We're looking at a catalogue of issues, a catalogue of potential failures. We're looking at something that needs to be looked at more robustly. We're looking at the challenges some of our young people have had. And so if we suggest this is just down to cuts, we're making a big mistake.
Sean Bailey.
I think for me, one of the driving issues is in the last 10 to 15 years, we've done so much of our youth about their rights. We've done little about their responsibilities. What I'd say to the young people right now, you're attacking the community you come from.
That's it.
And people at home who are deciding if this is yobbery or not, in my opinion, the large part of it is about yobbery.
And what about closing youth centres and so on? Because that's one way of getting people off the streets.
These things are different. We're talking about the attitude of these youth. The comment that most of these kids wouldn't be in a youth centre, you'd have to look at. But we are talking about the fact that our youth feel like they can go and take this risk and we've had nothing to lose. There's 2 things there. One, some of them genuinely feel disconnected, that's right. But the other is we've we've encouraged them to take control of the world. We've abdicated power to our young people.
Well, do you think in that sense that they are more violent now because they're more ruthless and are less fixed in any kind of moral sense?
Absolutely. We spent the last 15, 20 years trying to replace people's families with welfare and all kinds of madness like that. We need to go back to our family structure.
You said at the start of our conversation, you mentioned if we can't get it right this year, we won't get it right next year. That seemed like a nod towards the Olympics. I mean, the thing that people around the world will be looking at this and think it's shameful if one of the greatest cities in the world can't manage to keep the peace on a night like this.
Reverend Nim's right. There's a whole layer of issues here. There is the question, if you're making massive cuts, there's always the potential for this sort of revolt against that. But there's also the problem that you've got policing morale demoralised. The threat that, you know, the best part of 2,000 police are going to go immediately the Olympics is out the way. And I think you've just got to have a real focus on this. The Mayor and the Prime Minister have got to get a grip. They've got to be seen to speak for everybody, not just an elite at the top of society.
What do you want from them when they come back? Because the Mayor is on his way back overnight and the Prime Minister will be back tomorrow too.
We need a commitment that they're going to support the police service. The way they're not going to support us is by implementing their 20% cuts, implementing the Windsor Review on pay and conditions, which will drive morale even further down to what it is at the moment, increasing our pension subscriptions.
People will understand that this is of deep concern to the police, but there's a situation on the streets tonight which suggests that's a kind of threat. You know, if you don't pay us what we want, there's going to be more rioting.
I don't think it is a threat. It's a concern, and the people I represent are really concerned about their futures. They're considering whether they should actually leave the police service as a result of those cuts and those changes. But what I have to emphasise is the dedication of the people who are on the streets tonight and have been on the streets since Thursday is without question.
Sean, what do you want from the Prime Minister tomorrow?
What I want for the Prime Minister is to let everybody know that there is a plan to sort this out. What I don't want is, to jump to one conclusion and just look at the thing. There is a gambit of movement, a gambit of problems to look at. But what I don't want from politicians is for them to use it to forward their agenda and for other government departments to suggest if they don't get a cut, this wouldn't happen.
But do you not worry that where are these guys? I mean, why wasn't the Prime Minister back earlier? Does it not matter to you?
I think this is the thing that the media have been the most childish about. At one point, do you think that David Cameron's going to go down there with a shield and deal with the kids in Tottenham and then run over to Hackney as well? We have a mechanism in a big, sophisticated society. The police are here.
But we need leaders, don't we?
Absolutely.
And where are they?
And we have leaders. We have a Deputy Prime Minister. We have a Deputy Mayor.
Who's just come back from holiday.
Exactly. We have all manner of people to deal with it.
And a Home Secretary who's just come back from holiday.
The point is this. They are not the people.
Prime Minister who's coming back from holiday.
They are not the
people. And a Mayor of London who's coming back from holiday.
They are not the people who will put this problem right. This problem is in our communities. This problem is in our economy. What are our young people going to do for a job? What are our communities going to do to control the behaviour of our young people? If we weren't having a riot, we'd be smearing young people's name with some other violent act that they're involved in. The point is this. We have lost control of our young people, and that is our responsibility, not politicians.
Do any of you see any situation where the army could actually be involved in this?
No, the army aren't trained. I mean, I think the army's a bit overstretched in Afghanistan at the moment. I find myself suddenly agreeing with Sean. Kids have got to have the prospect of a job. At the moment, many of them, perhaps even the majority, have no guarantee that's coming. What young, mainly working-class men want is to know they can have a job, which means they can support a wife and a family, and restore those sort of family values Sean's talking about. At the moment, a lot of young people coming through the system haven't got that confidence.
I raised with you before, and I want to raise it one more time, you've just got a minute or two left, the question of the Olympics. I mean, people will be very worried about the Olympics, and there's a possibility of a terrorist threat on top of that, and public order, and a lot more people who are coming to our country and we're looking for
this is why the politicians have to lead. Sean's right. They're not coming back to run the system. But when I was in Singapore and the bombs went off in London, I came straight
Which was
back.
when you won the Olympic bid,
yes,
where the British, the London bid was won.
You've got to be there, leading and articulating and reassuring. You can't do that over a phone. You've got to be on the street.
Would there, one specific question about the Duggan family, I mean, would it help if there was some kind of apology? Because they know there will be an inquiry into what happened. We will find out eventually, but we won't find out today or tomorrow or the next day. It'll take some time.
Let me be clear about this. We've got the IPCC that have now effectively had relationships, connections with the family, and that's been worked through. It's important that communities feel reassured that the IPCC will be transparent. It's important that truth gets out into communities. It's important that holistically, as Londoners, we say this should not continue. But the reality is this, until we are sure, and it is important that there is an appropriate response from the police at the point in time. If the IPCC say there's a concern, then the police need to give an appropriate response to local communities, because if trust is not there, then this can get worse, and I don't want it to.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you all very much.